To order the April 11, 2013 special session of the Rules Committee. Councilman Snell, would you give the blessing?
Rise, please. Precious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this beautiful spring day. And Lord, be with us as we go through the committee meetings today. Be with all our visitors, be with the council, and bless everyone that could not be here. Thank you, Lord, for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Show it on the roll.
Chuck Huskin Jr.
Here.
David Walkingstick. Bill England.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Joe Bird. Julia Coates. Jody Fishinghawk. Meredith Fraley. Here. Janelle Fulbright. Present. Don Garvin. Frankie Hargis.
Present.
China Glory Jordan.
Present.
Lee Keener. Dick Lay.
Here.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
David Thornton. Kara Callan Watts.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
Our first item is Chair.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move item number 3 up to and in front of number 1 under new business.
Do we have a second? Second, Council Thornton. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Very good. All right, so we will take up that item now. It's listed as number 3 on the agenda. Councilor Hargis, do you have a motion for us?
Yes, I have. We've handed out some substitute language for this, and if you'd like to go over that.
Councilor, are you making a motion to approve this substitute?
Yes.
All right, and this, Councilors, is the wind farm resolution with some red writing on. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion, second by Councilor Walkingstick. Councilors, this revised language, just one very simple thing. It simply indicates in that first whereas, and then in a final be it therefore resolved, which actually says resolves and should be resolved as a D, that it's a sense of the Council of Cherokee Nation that revenues received by Cherokee Nation through this project should be designated for programs relating to education, healthcare, housing, and/or environmental protection. We have a second. Madam Speaker, do you have a motion?
Yes, I have a motion to table this resolution indefinitely.
Second by Councilor Lay. Which is not debatable. Proceed to a vote. All those in favor?
Point of information,
Yes.
before we vote, so we moved, let me just make sure I'm clear. So we've moved item number 3 to the front. We did not have anything in the book, but then there were 2 things in front of us that were presented, but it's the one in red we should really be looking at, and that's the motion to table indefinitely.
That's correct. This is language that was before us at the last Rules Committee meeting, with the exception of the one revision that I just described.
Okay, and a motion to table indefinitely, if passed, kills the resolution, correct?
It tables it indefinitely until it's brought off the table.
It's brought off the table.
No. If it is tabled indefinitely, it kills it. I don't think you can, unless it's in the same meeting, you cannot bring it off the table.
I'll put in my parliamentary procedure act. A motion to table indefinitely is a kill vote to the piece of legislation. You could only reconsider it during the same meeting, or if there was when we have killed items in the past, it would have to come back in a substantially different form to do that. But that is a kill vote on this resolution.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That is my motion.
Very good. All right. Not a debatable motion. All those in favor of the motion to table indefinitely say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Take a roll call.
Meredith Fraley.
No.
Janelle Fulbright.
Yes.
Don Garvin.
No.
Frankie Hargis.
Yes.
Chuck Huskin Jr.
No.
China Glory Jordan.
Yes.
Lee Keener.
No.
Dick Lay.
Yes.
Curtis Snell.
Yes.
David Thornton.
Yes.
David Walkingstick. Kara Callan Watts.
No.
Bill England.
No.
Jack Baker.
No.
Joe Bird.
Yes.
Julia Coates. Jody Fishinghawk. We have 8 yes and 7 no.
Let's table indefinitely. We'll move on to item number 1 on the agenda. Madam Speaker, would you take this relating to the election code?
I have requested an AG's opinion on it, and I believe it will be coming out shortly. So out of respect to the AG's office, I will also do a motion to table on that for a month. That be
Okay, there's a motion by Madam Speaker, second by Councilor Lay, to table for a month. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Table for a month. Item number 2 is a resolution authorizing certain lending transactions involving Cherokee Nation Businesses, LLC. Madam Speaker, would you take that one?
Yes, this is a resolution authorizing certain lending transactions involving Cherokee Nation Businesses, LLC. What it involves is waiving our sovereign immunity for their regular line of credit. This is the same line of credit that's been in existence for a number of years. They are a $600 million company and have to have a line of credit to run their company in an advantageous way for the Cherokee people. You have received what is the basis of what we might call a white paper on the old line of credit compared to the new line of credit. You will find that we sent a very ably bodied man up to them. Doug Evans has negotiated even better terms than we had last time. He is here to answer any of your questions, and I would put that in the form of a motion.
Second. Motion second by Councilor Thornton. And before we move into Mr. Evans' presentation, I do want to point out to councilors 2 documents in front of you. One is a chart that was developed by our attorney, Diane Barker Harold, which just gives some history to the various waivers of sovereign immunity, I think dating back to 1990, it looks like. We thought this might be helpful to put any waiver of sovereign immunity into some context. And the second is Diane Barker Harold in the room. I wondered if the second document was drafted. Madam Speaker, do you know if the second document was drafted by
This document and this document
We have
were
this-
both drafted by our council attorney. Just to give us kind of a little history of the different waivers, and I believe somewhere on there you will find it starts out about 8101 where we're doing lines of credit, different lines of credit for CMB.
And then, additionally, a third document I bring to your attention is a memo from Mr. Evans dated April 13, 2013. It's already been distributed by email, but this is in front of you in hard copy. Mr. Evans, of course, is here. It was a very thorough explanation about the importance of this. So with that, before we get into any questions, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Evans to kind of walk us through this resolution and the various issues that tend to that. Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Council. Good to see all of you again. Hope that my memo from April 3rd found all of you well and was put together in the fashion to your pleasing. Wanted to mainly accomplish 2 things with that memo: was provide the adequate time to review really the difference here of these 2 facilities. We find ourselves here today because we're coming to the close of a 5-year credit facility that the businesses have been operating under since 2008. In 2008, Resolution 3108 was adopted by this body to authorize such a negotiation and closing of a credit facility for CMB, which I had the pleasure during that time of reviewing on behalf of the tribal council. And as reported then and again today, the current credit facility that Mr. Carson, Mr. Stewart put into place was a very attractive credit facility. It was a very large facility, $224 million in total, and had certain aspects that not only protected the Cherokee Nation, that respected the distribution of dividends back to the nation, and also had favorable pricing in it. So when we went back to renegotiate that and renew that line of credit a few months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and began that exercise, we started with a very high bar. when it comes to terms and conditions, covenants, and restrictions. We wanted to improve on that facility, and the board challenged us to do that. And so I wanted to really have a good document before you that you could see the comparison between these two credit facilities. As you know, these type of financing transactions are very part of a normal course of business for any businesses, and we're such a large entity at CMB that that is why we've maintained a long-standing credit facility in place to ensure that working capital needs are met, as well as long-term capital expansions, whether it's maintenance projects, casino expansions, or other diversified business transactions. And we've been operating under the luxury of a solid plan for 5 years. That's coming down, now it's terming out. It terms out in June. And what we put before you is a renewal document for that same plan, or that same credit facility. And in that memo that I sent you, I can walk through quickly the comparisons of the real material changes, substantive changes between the terms of these two documents. First off being, obviously, that I just mentioned, the previous one was in total $224 million. That included 3 different components. And now we're requesting a $100 million facility. So we feel confident that with the current cash flow levels that CMB are experiencing right now, we will be able to meet the needs of working capital as well as long-term capital expansions, casino expansions, diversified business expansions, maintenance projects, health facilities, whatever those projects are, and there's a substantial number in our 5-year forecast, that we feel like we can accommodate all those needs through a $100 million line. I challenged my group, finance group, as well as all the leaders of all the businesses of CMB to put together a 5-year forecast 5 months, 6 months ago. And they did a bottom-up forecast of that 5-year outlook for the businesses, what opportunities, what struggles, what challenges we may face financially, and to get a clear picture of what does a 5-year outlook really look like from not only a cash flow perspective, but a financing need perspective. And that's where we were able to derive, is $100 million enough? And we feel confident that it is. So that's one of the major changes right there, just reducing it down to $100 million. But another change, the previous credit facility was a syndication facility. It had several banks involved in it. It was pretty pricey when you do that, especially at that level of financing that we were at. When you close that type of a transaction, it does get pricey. So we did see some significant savings on closing costs here, upwards close to $1 million. Some other savings, we were able to slightly carve down our interest rate. We had 5 basis points off lower than what it was then. Again, that upfront fee, we have an unused commitment fee that was previously up to 50 basis points. Now we negotiated it down to 40, which represents the fee we pay just to have a line open. Okay, it's not free to have an open line of credit. So we were able to negotiate good terms there. One of the most important, to me anyway, and our team and the board of directors, where we focused a lot of attention during negotiations, was in our covenants, in our financial covenants, as it comes to ratios, to ensure that we don't go into a technical default of this credit facility in times if we were to experience times like we did in 2008, 2009. Some ratios that used to be in play, we had a minimum EBITDA ratio, which represents basically our cash flow level at CMB. We had a leverage ratio, we had a fixed charge coverage ratio, and what these basically are indicators of the financial performance of CMB as it relates to its ability to service its obligations back to these credit facilitators, have to maintain a certain amount of ratio or coverage, if you will, in adequate cash flows and income levels to ensure the bank is securing its position and having adequate cash to supply those obligations. We were able to negotiate that down, those 3 covenants down to 1 this time. Basically, it's an EBITDA ratio, or what we call a leverage ratio. It's how much debt to our EBITDA is. It's a 1.5 to 1. It's the same ratio as it was before, but we were able to negotiate out the other ratios. in essence, on $100 million, what that means is our EBITDA would have to drop below $67 million for us to be in tech. And we were completely out on the $100 million line. So we'd have to borrow all $100 million, and our EBITDA would have to drop below 67 for us to be in technical default. That doesn't mean that they're going to take over CMB or anything like that. It just means we would be in the technical default if that happened. Well, if we started getting anywhere near a $67 million EBITDA level, we would not be out $100 million on this line. Again, that ratio is the same as it has been for the last 5 years. Plus, we had other further restrictions on top of that. One other change in this ratio, or in this term sheet, is we moved to the Northern District where CMB is actually domiciled, where the previous one was the Eastern District. And there's one other thing that I failed to put in your comparison. And it was just an oversight on my part. I just forgot about this part. In 2008, the current credit facility that turns out fell underneath the Federal Arbitration Act law, and we were able to, in the last round of negotiations, negotiate the Cherokee Arbitration Act as the applicable statute. So we thought that was another gain. So in summary, in comparison to the facility that will be terming out, that's been in place for 5 years, for those reasons I feel that we have not lost any ground. We picked up ground, both in covenants, in compliance to the Cherokee law, and with that, the board was proud to endorse it unanimously, and I would like to also, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, acknowledge a few people that was very instrumental on the team that I worked with to get to this point. Ms. Kim Barnett, Assistant Treasurer, Mr. Jim Carrington, Assistant General Counsel, and of course, last but not least, Mr. Sean Slayton, CEO. I appreciate their efforts to help us get to this point. And there's one other thing I want to mention. The distributions and the dividends back to the Cherokee Nation. And Jim, if I might have you help me with this explanation. We have the ability, did I say something technically incorrect? Please correct me. Even if we fall into a ratio problem, we will not be restricted with this new facility from still making our dividend.
Under the Act.
Under the Act.
Say that one more time.
Let me say it backwards. It makes no sense. Take it chronologically. By the way, I've been doing banking law since '85, and I've never seen a clause like this in our favor. So this is an incredible point, an incredible give in terms of cooperation from the bank, because they recognize how important the statutory dividend is and what the dividends are to us. Under ordinary circumstances, if a bank's providing a loan, they'll say, we don't want you taking money and paying your shareholders if you're in default. Once you're in default, stop making dividends. This act actually allows us to do that. They said we can continue to make dividends to the nation even if we're in default. And that's what Doug said, we would be in default either by not making our interest payments or by violating a ratio. So we can continue to make dividends as usual. The restriction is that if we're in default, we will stop making dividends, except that we can continue to make the dividends that this body requires under the Dividend Act. So even if we're in default, we can still make the dividends under the Dividend Act.
So the special dividends that are above and beyond the statutory required level is where would we still be able to do that according to the...
Not if we're in default, but if we're not in default, those dividends are not restricted. We can go above the 35% for special
anytime.
dividends. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very less than, I don't want to use the word intrusive, but much more flexible environment for us to consider any future needs that the nation may have.
That's correct. That's correct.
Certainly don't ever anticipate us being in violation of that technical covenant, 1.5 to 1. But again, I realize I went over a lot of technical terms on financing and credit facility here, but wanted to make sure you understood that, like I said, 5 years ago, it was a good credit facility. And I think I even stood before this body and told you it was, that they were able to negotiate. I think we've not lost ground. We were able to squeeze a little bit more better ground out of this, and appreciate your consideration on behalf of the businesses.
Questions, Chairman?
Mr. Byrd.
So in years past, we needed about 5 lending institutions, and we were up to 224 line of credit. Now you're asking for 100 million with one lending institution.
We have one lending institution. We've given them the flexibility to participate some of this, similar to the way the last one was. It was participated at 5 other banks other than the primary. This primary also has that latitude to participate. I think they are planning on participation of a few other local regional banks into the equation. We're still. I think they're going through those negotiations, but anybody that participates has to assume these terms. We deal with them; they're our agents. So.
Are we getting to the point now where we can finally dictate to the lending institutions how we draw up these agreements?
Well,
I'll use that word lightly, dictate, but we seem like we have more leverage if we're down to one lending institution now.
We do have stronger leverage because of the two reasons: the credit market as it is now compared to 2008, as well as our financial strength as a nation. Our financial strength, our balance sheet, our asset base, our income flows. Our income flows are, as you know, are continuing to go in a strong growth pattern. Strong growth pattern doesn't just happen. It's because investments were put into place years past that are generating higher income levels. We want to continue that growth pattern, and that strategy would continue. Obviously, it results in more dividends, right? That's a given. That's a given. But it also equates to many more jobs, higher revenue, stronger asset base, further leverage. So we continue to improve our position financially, and the banks recognize that. They recognize it. They appreciate that. I mean, as much as we do. They see what's right in front of them. So we're able to negotiate where we feel like there's opportunity to negotiate to strengthen our position on behalf of not only the businesses, our growth strategies, but also on behalf of our shareholders. That was one of my absolute priorities, Counselor, was ensuring that the shareholder of CNB does not lose ground in renegotiating another 5-year credit facility.
Well, with the new competition that's going to be soon coming in the Tulsa market, I think we need to stay ahead of the game. You and your staff have done a good job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Collins-Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Doug, on this, it looks like there's some really good things that are happening, but I wanted to understand some more. Do we have, I don't remember seeing a 1-year projection of the use of the line of credit.
No, there wasn't one included. We have a 5-year forecast that I'd be happy to share that with you. A lot of the strategic projects, initiatives that the board is being considered, hasn't considered yet, but yet we need to put into a pro forma. Obviously, as I know you can understand, we would tend to keep that somewhat confidential, but I'll be more than happy to show you what we're looking at.
So if you could email that to me, just mark it confidential tonight, because I'll need it before the council vote, and I'm going to have to leave here momentarily for federal consultation stuff. So, because I don't know if I'll even get to it before we vote, but I support this, but I had some questions, of course, and I'd like to see what the projected use. Do you have an idea, is this cash flow going to be used to will this be used to fund those health facilities, or what are we going to do?
Good question. Over the next, I think I'm okay to say this. The 5-year projection indicated a capital use of around slightly over $500 million over the next 5 years. That consists of, actually it's around 550. That consists of the $100 million for health facilities and 450 related to casino expansions, strategic acquisitions, maintenance capital projects, working capital projects, a whole gamut of things. So when we laid into this 5-year pro forma, and we also laid into it income lifts from investments, where we fully expect our income to be going up while our capital expenditures are still being made, then there's an increase in cash flow, just like you'll be generating an increase in dividends. over the next 5 years. With that, it yielded a use or a projected draw on the line out in a certain time in the future, right? That we would anticipate possibly, if all the projects, again, it goes back to when is the timing of these projects going to be happening?
So it would still be used for cash flow purposes, is what I understood it was in the past. It was
Yes.
really a temporary,
Oh,
not
yeah.
intended for
We go-
long-term.
Absolutely. Now I understand where you're going. Yeah, we would go on it, we'd come right back off with just about as fast as it went
Okay.
on it.
So, I don't know if we'll get to vote on it before I leave, but I do support it. But I need, before full council, I need the 5-year flow, cash flow pro forma, however you want to, whatever your projections. And then, did we get the actual, in the past, before we approved it, like when it was Bank of America, we saw the actual contract? Because if we're going to pass a resolution that is reflective or part of a contract, we have to see the full thing.
There was last year, I believe, 3108 had a terms and conditions document. Do you recall, Jim, the actual legal
I do. It
documents
was,
that was?
if I remember right, Counselor, I think that the last time we passed this, we had attached to the resolution the term sheet. It looks like a contract because it's 9 pages, so it's very detailed. So there are not contracts drafted at this point, but we have agreed to the level of the same term sheet. So it's a multi-page term
And last time was the
Last time being
the same thing?
Yes, 2008.
And maybe it was initially when we did and I think it happened to be Bank of America that won the
That song is
award.
correct.
I remember there was something massive that I looked through at some point, so I don't know if that's something
Maybe in that final credit facility.
It may have been. If it were, it would have been because we worked on that for like a year and a half, so that's probably possible that we would have started drafting. In this case, our understanding is that we're actually going to use those documents as the basis for drafting this round. It's with a different bank, but that bank participated in the first one. So, same council. So, documents are not yet being drafted. We wanted to make sure you guys are okay with it at the term sheet level. Then we'll start drafting.
Okay, very good, thank you. And so I can expect these tonight or tomorrow morning, I guess, both those. Well, I guess just
The
the one
5 year,
item,
the
the
5 year,
5 year,
yeah.
because we don't have something. You've already provided me everything you can on the contractual side. Okay, thank you very much. And if I have any questions, I'll call before council, hopefully, unless
Okay.
something new comes up right before.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor.
And thank you, everybody.
Councilor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, you did, in your description of what you gave us, you got me here quite a few things. When we're talking cash flow, we're talking free cash flow, right? So that's a good sign, isn't it? Very good sign. We have no outstanding debt right now. So one thing I did want to call out publicly was our attorney or the AG may want to comment on this, to tell us the benefit of moving to the Northern District Court as opposed to Eastern District. Or maybe.
You want to do it, you want to do it?
Actually, I have the AG's office recommended because they usually do that. I can see benefits. You guys probably can as well.
Well, technically, CMB, or the majority of what happens, is in the Northern District, although the tribal headquarters is here, so that's probably just, it's just a kind of a jurisdictional type thing between the Northern and Eastern District.
Yeah, I can see the benefit of doing that.
So that's basically it.
Thank you. And then, so the regional banks would be assuming some of this as well. If the chief is on the board of a certain bank, how would that work?
Chief on the board of the bank?
He's not on the board of any bank.
Is
He's not.
Bank First, Tahlequah.
He's not.
So he resigned?
My understanding is that he was approached to be on the board, and it's my understanding that he did not join that board.
Okay.
If he was on the board, that wouldn't be appropriate for that bank to
Well, right.
participate.
No, yeah, and that again, it's my understanding he was approached, and after consulting with members of his staff, and decided to decline that.
Okay. And then on the Cherokee Arbitration Act, will that be in the document as well that we'll receive before the full council?
I believe it is in here.
He's in the term sheet.
Yes, it's in the document. Page 8.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Okay. I can look further into that if I have questions as well. And also anything you send one counselor, please send it to all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Fraser.
That will probably you, on the loan documents, have those been negotiated, et cetera, in there?
They have not. What we've done at this point is we've hammered out the term sheet.
Okay.
Parties have pretty much agreed that, in fact, it's stated in multiple places in the term sheet that we'll be using the other loan documents as the guide. So, probably, in fact, I know they're drafting right now. We haven't
Okay.
seen the first draft yet.
So those documents will have a provision in there releasing employees, officials, et cetera, from any liability.
Yes, ma'am. Language, actually, I believe it's not in there. It's clearly in the old document that, to the extent that the bank has any rights, it's clearly not against officers of the nation, employees of the bank.
And what assets would the CMB be pledging? I haven't looked at any.
I can tell you. There are two groups of assets. As you might guess, the bank is concerned mainly about the gaming and the gaming assets. So the gaming assets that are held by CNE and its subsidiaries, or gaming subsidiaries, those are being pledged. Then to the extent that those result in cash flow that then gets moved up and parked in a C&B bank account, then that bank account is pledged to C&B. None of the other assets of any other diversified companies are pledged.
And I want to make sure I'm understood. We can continue making dividends if in default up to 35%, correct?
Correct.
But we can't exceed that if we're in default.
Only if we're in a default status, which at this point would be almost an extraordinary time for us. But yes, if we did drop below, if we were out 100 million, all the way out on that line, and that EBITDA dropped below 66, then we would need to stay with the statutory dividend level. We can still make it, but we can't do specials at that, just until we get either the EBITDA back up or we pay the line down to get in the ratio requirement.
So we're reducing our current 224 million to 100 million. Okay.
And just to be clear, the one exception they made on, as long as the nation didn't put us in default, not the exception to that.
That's that same language was in the last one.
That's correct.
About
That's
partial
Yeah.
interference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doug, on page 3, it mentions closing arrangement fee. Seems kind of unusual for this kind of deal. Is that normal, 25,000?
The 25,000?
Yeah, it seems a little steep to me.
Actually, this was amazing. If you look at the comparison that Doug put together, the last bank we dealt with, Bank of America, one of the largest banks in the country, their fee was about $1 million more than that. And so they break it up. They charge you to pull the deal together. They charge you to close the deal. They ask you to pay for their attorney's fees. And my experience has been that's usually the way it works. We were quite surprised that the fee for this bank was that much less. I think they wanted to work well with us. And being a local bank,
It mentions agent. Who's the agent?
the agent, the reference to the agent, if you have, as in this deal, as in our current deal, you have multiple banks that get together and lend the money because it's such a large amount. We like to deal with one of them. One of them does the talking on behalf of everybody else. That's what they refer to as the agent. In this case, Bank of Oklahoma is the main bank, so we refer to them as the agent.
It's not a person,
It's the bank itself.
Institution.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Speaker.
I just want to make sure the assets pledged are the exact same assets that were pledged before on the prior old.
That is correct.
Okay, nothing's changed there. That's been the same assets for years, years, and years.
That's correct.
And we're saving almost $1 million by the successful negotiation that y'all have done on the upfront fee. Is that correct? I think it's $975,000 that you, Jim, you, Doug, and Sean, you three have negotiated a deal better than we made in 2008 at the front by almost $1 million. You're to be commended for that, and I appreciate it.
Our board. Thank you, Madam Speaker. But let's not lose sight of the fact that our board was very engaged. The executive
Yes.
committee of the board of directors, which I think several of you may have had an opportunity to participate in some of that as advisor, challenged the team and sent us back a few times and said, stand firm. And,
And
that's what we did.
please send our appreciation to them too.
Okay.
Thank you all for your work.
Any further questions? Well, I just echo what the speaker said a moment ago. The fact that you negotiated the best terms we've ever had and substantially improved upon the last terms reflects on the skill set of the folks who went to the table to negotiate it. It also reflects on the direction the CMB is going. If we were going in the wrong direction, we wouldn't get better terms. But we're going in the right directions, and every month we see evidence of that. On hiring, on the revenues, and now on this very significant line of credit negotiation. I think we can all be very proud of that. So thank you, Doug. We're pleased but not surprised about your work on this. I do have a question, and you may have addressed it to some extent in response to Councilor Bird's question, but I understand we need to go with a big entity for such a substantial line of credit. There's no question about that. The fact remains that we have a lot of small banks in the 14 counties, some of whom are taro banks. And the fact is the taro law requires that preference be applied, even to a bank. And does CMB have a strategy to make sure that we are reaching out to these small banks, including the non-taro banks that employ Cherokees in the 14 counties, but particularly the taro banks who under the law, just like any other service provider, are entitled to the benefits of that law? Does CMB have a strategy to sort of effectuate the policies of the taro law?
We do. As a matter of fact, kind of a multi-pronged strategy. First off, every opportunity that presents itself that deals with lending, depository, treasury, merchant service, things of that nature, that's going to invoke a financial institution into the equation. We're going to go out to bid. One, we make sure that at a minimum, all the taro banks are included and contacted. We did reach out to them in this RFP process. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, Councilor Hoskin, a small bank just has a very difficult time holding the level of capital required to underwrite such a large facility. But one of the things that helped this particular bank in its scoring when we were evaluating the RFP was this is the only bank that offered the taro banks an opportunity to even participate in it. And they did. Now, they did offer. Still yet to be arranged if some of those taro banks were going to be able to carve a small piece of that credit pie up and do a little bit of business with the CMB, but it was very important to have that opportunity presented to those taro banks. On an ongoing strategy, my team, Ms. Barnett, treasurer, she's keenly aware of the importance of the taro institutions and the financial institutions, so we've even got other operational people, controllers that report to me that are also have been communicated, and they're in full understanding that any opportunities out in the operational areas where we can go to a financial institution that's taro certified, doesn't have to be a bank, it can be a merchant service company or any other type of financial entity. To first, make sure that when we go out to RFP, these folks are contacted and they know that there's a quote, there's a proposal out there for services that their companies offer. So we try very hard to and they have been even long before I was there, but to make sure that any opportunities get rolled out to those taro companies that pertain to financial services.
Well, that's good, and it's good to hear that Bank of Oklahoma did that. I suspect they didn't just do it on their own initiative. I suspect you all prodded them a bit to embrace the. And I wouldn't expect a bank of that size to know intimately our taro law, but it's good to hear that you all brought it to their attention, because it tells me that CMB is embracing Taro, the Cherokee preference, which they should, and if they're doing it on the financial side, it makes me more assured that they're doing it on all the services. So that's very good to hear, and I expect that in a year's time, 2 years' time, we will see that our Taro banks are getting more business opportunities than they've ever gotten before. I don't have any reason to doubt that, Doug. I appreciate it.
If any counselors have ideas, creative suggestions, please give me a call on services that you may know, a financial, Taro certified financial company that offers services out there, and not sure if we're doing that type, or we need that type of service. Give me a call, let me find out and see what the opportunity is, and make sure that when that comes back up for renegotiation, that those Taro companies are included. Because sometimes we just don't know every single Cherokee company that's out there, all the services that they each provide.
Very good. Thank you. Any further question or comment on the resolution? All right, it is a resolution. We'll move to a vote. Madam Speaker, just to clarify, you did intend for this to go to full council in April.
Yes, I did.
Very good. And I think that would be true of anything we pass today. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
One abstention from Mr. Keener. Very good. Congratulations, Doug and company.
Thanks, Council.
We now move on to item number 4 on the agenda. Madam Speaker, your next door neighbor is absent, and she is the
Yes.
sponsor of this particular item.
Yes, there's a couple of things on this particular item. We've been doing a review would you ask Mr. Slayton to stay for just a little bit? There's a couple of things on this item. This would pertain to our rules of procedure governing the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council, which we have all worked on from time to time, being a part of this body. And under the rules, there is a section on conduct. But also under the rules, it calls for an amendment to be done in one of our regular meetings. And so on behalf of the sponsor of this, I'm asking to table this to regular rules for the month of April.
For the month of April? Would that require an amendment to the agenda?
Let's see, I don't believe it does
Okay,
because
it
I don't
doesn't.
think it
Okay,
goes up until tomorrow.
Very good.
Okay.
Second by Council Byrd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Table.
Aye.
Mr. Keener opposes. Table this to April. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay. We now move on to announcements. Any announcements? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Board, Councilor Keener, all those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. So adjourned.